Every behavior has a motivation. And when you start to understand the motivations of why you're telling yourself these things and how they're serving you, then you can begin to work on changing that.
Hey there, Adam. I am gonna do something a little fun today. We got a little game to play a little bit later on here in the podcast. But first, I want to hear from you. What are like the top 2 or 3 obstacles we hear most of the time that people feel get in the way of them losing weight, getting fit, getting healthy, feeling great? What are the top 2 or 3?
Number 1, stress. Or maybe number 1 is time. I would say 1 and 2, it's like the whole LeBron versus MJ debate. People have them switch sometimes. I think it's stress and time are the 2 big ones I hear a lot.
Yeah. I agree. So, for most of our listeners and of course our clients, they know the biggest thing we focus on is what goes on, as you like to say, between the ears, right? The mindset and psychology of people, of ourselves, of, our experience of life. And so, without further ado, let's play a little game. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, it's called Who Says? Or Who Told You That? I like either one. They're interchangeable. So, here's the deal. Let's start out. Okay, you identified that most of our clients identify time and stress as the 2 biggest obstacles. And I just want to preface this game with, it's probably going to make you squirm. It makes me squirm because I'm just as guilty, okay? But let's all squirm together. So here we go. I'd exercise more if only I had time. Well, who says? Not who says you'd exercise more if only you had time. I get it. You just said that. But who says you don't have time? Okay, let's try it again. I'd focus on getting healthy if I wasn't so stressed. Okay, who says you're so stressed? You see where I'm going, Adam?
I do. I like it. Let's keep. I want to put my little helmet on and jump into this. I love this.
It's probably good to have.
Let's jump into this rabbit hole of where we're going. I love it.
I know. It's probably good to have a helmet on. It's a little bumpy. And like I said, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, but this is the work I want you guys to embrace. Okay, I have another one. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Are you ready? But I'm doing everything right. I should be losing weight, being stronger, feeling better, changing.
Ooh.
Okay. There's 2 in there. Number 1, I'm doing everything right. According to whom? Who said you're doing it right? And what is right? Actually, that's the bigger who says in my mind. What's right and who says that's right? Okay, that's number 1. And number 2, I should. Guys, anytime you hear yourself saying, I should, stop. Challenge it. Who says? Who says I should? Right? What do you think about that one, Adam?
Yes, very, very powerful. And when you dig deeper in that, there's a lot to unpack.
There is. I'm going to give you a couple more, and then we're going to kind of break this down because, I'm still squirming. Here's another big one. I deserve. Who says? Who told you that? Oh, I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. What do you think about that one?
I love the idea of laughing when you're uncomfortable. Just a quick side tangent. There's been times where I'm really craving something and it feels like someone's tickling you inside your body and you can't scratch it. And I think the best response ever is to just laugh at it because it will fade. Anyway.
Yes. Yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. To me, it feels more like clawing. I don't do any laughing when I'm craving something.
It makes me feel alive, though. It makes me feel alive to kind of, the sacrifice of a pleasure is in itself a pleasure. There is something to it. Anyway, I don't want to take us too far off course here.
right. I can appreciate that. All right. Let's see what else. I blew the day. Oh yeah, who says? Who said that? Who told you that? This is a huge one, guys. Huge, especially for you perfectionists out there. Another one is let's see. I'm weak. Who told you? Who said that? I mean, here's the thing. All right, let's just talk about what this really is, Adam. The biggest obstacle in my mind is my mind. Is everybody on the same page now? What do you think, Adam?
This is getting very meta. Um,
It is, but the truth, what I really want people to take away from this is don't believe everything you think.
yes.
Don't believe every voice in your head. I have had some clients this week that have bumped into that voice in their head a bunch. And it is the one thing standing between them and where they want to go. And if you cannot challenge it, if you cannot see it first and then challenge it, you're stuck. You're stuck, right? So I really encourage you guys, when you hear that voice in your head, who says? Who told you that? Who told you it was hopeless? Who told you food controls you? Who told you you're doing it right? Who told you you're doing it wrong? Right? Like, be a questioner. We have a guy on our team, Adam, you know who I'm talking about. He's like the most brilliant questioner ever. He makes me squirm. We actually have two good questioners on the team. But yeah, like be a questioner, right? Challenge everything, especially the voice in your head, because it's the one thing standing between you and change. Actually, it's not stress and it's not time. The other one I had on my list, it's environment. It's not environment. Go ahead.
I love that. I think, it's really important to realize that when you have these thoughts and these voices in your head that we all do, if you can listen to it, if you can acknowledge it, then that's wonderful, because it means you are not that voice or you're not those thoughts, right? It's kind of like, the waves come in, right? The waves are never going to stop. Those are the thoughts, those are the voices, those are the you deserve this, you should, this, all these things, right? We don't want to be the waves. We want to kind of ride the waves. And if you can ride the waves, you can realize that you could either acknowledge them, you can ignore them, you can laugh at them, you could skip them, whatever. But you are not the waves. And I think just, practicing, understanding what you're thinking and just acknowledging it. And then you realize there is the duality, right? There's your voice and your thoughts, but then you have you, like the real you, right? You are not those thoughts. You are not that voice.
That's right. Yeah. And it feels weird because I think a lot of us are really comfortable with that voice in our head, and we do identify with it and as it. So to challenge it and to put some space between it is really uncomfortable for a lot of us. It also feels a little bit like, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time, if we're wrong, it's hard. It's hard to be wrong, but I encourage people all the time. I'm like, let's be wrong this week. Let's be wrong about what you've said is always true, whatever that may be. Are you willing to just be wrong about it and open yourself up to the possibility that whatever that voice is telling you may not be accurate? So here's the assignment this week. Play the game, right? When you hear the voice, play the game. Who says? Who told you that? And then look at the other side. Like Adam said, what's the duality? And can you open yourself up to that maybe being the case? And what actions could that lead to? Adam, do you have any ideas, actions that we could take away? I can give an example. So my daughter has struggled from time to time with anxiety, right? And as she was understanding what it was, everything just felt like anxiety to her. Everything, even for fun things. It was just anxiety. Well, I'm just having anxiety. Well, I'm just having anxiety. And so one of the approaches I had her take was, well, obviously I tried to help teach her some coping mechanisms, but I said, it could also be excitement. It could also be anticipation. Who's telling you it's anxiety, right? And, no, that didn't fix it right away, but even just questioning it she now opens herself up to that idea on her own. She's like, oh, I could just be excited too, or I could just be in anticipation. So that's one way we can kind of play with that duality. Can you think of anything, Adam?
Totally. I mean, listen, I think sometimes it is as simple as thinking about something different. Ultimately, that's what a perspective change is, right? That's what a breakthrough is. You see something one way, and then suddenly you have this aha moment and you see it totally different, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, an example is like for many people, they're obsessively focusing on what they're eating. And then when they start to understand and focus on why they're eating, that changes so much for so many people. Something that's come up with me recently is, my son, he plays basketball, he loves it. My older one made the travel team this year, which is very exciting. And he would get nervous for games. And I tried to help him realize that that nervousness means a few things. Number one, it means he cares, which is great. And number two, as you kind of said, it's a form of excitement, right? And I said, like, wonderful. It means you care, which is great. You obviously care. You work hard. You practice. But it's also a form of excitement. And if you can learn to kind of channel that excitement, then it'll serve you a lot better. And I think for him, I think for a lot of us, what we fear most is the fear itself, right? There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And I think many of us are just we're fearful of that uncomfortable feeling, whatever it might be, whether it's anxiety, nervousness, but it's just a feeling. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried to kind of help him realize that like it's a wonderful feeling because A, it means you're playing at a high level, and like B, it also, if you could just realize that it's a form of excitement. And I think for him that really helped, just that perspective shift of, yeah, it just means I'm excited. Sure, he wants to do well. And I think that goes in line with stress, right? Stress simply means you care, right? It means you care. I mean, I think most people who are high strung and high stress type of people, they'd be stressed no matter what job they did. Like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
there's avoiding that. It's just the type of person you are. So instead of trying to avoid that, just realize it means you care. And that's a wonderful thing. And sure, there's more to it than that, of course. But I think that simple perspective, I know that simple perspective shift for my son at least helped because it's like, all right, it means he cares. And then we talked about the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario, right? And that is always helpful too. The worst
Mm-hmm.
case scenario, he turns the ball over, he throws it away, he makes a bad play. What's going to happen? Is a monster going to come out of the stands and eat you? No. And that helped a lot too.
Yeah, that's actually a great like second step in this, right? Like acknowledge the voice, you hear the voice, I hear the voice saying this, but who said that? Who's telling me this? And then find the alternative perspective and also discuss or consider worst case scenario. It's generally not that bad, right? No monsters coming out of the stands.
Right.
All right.
But I mean,
Anything else?
just to quickly dig into those things. I mean, what you said, like some of your, things that people say, like I'm too stressed or I have no time. Like it is just so fascinating when you start to really poke a hole in these stories and narratives we tell ourselves. And like you said, who said that? And if we're telling that to ourselves, why are we saying that to ourselves? And usually
Mm-hmm.
it's because we're protecting ourselves from doing the hardest thing, which is changing, right? It's much easier to keep feeding ourselves. It's like confirmation bias, right? Confirmation bias is when you're looking for evidence to support your existing beliefs, right? We all have these stories in our head. We all have to kind of get by in our life. And if we're constantly poking holes, it can be uncomfortable. But when you do that, that's when change starts to happen.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you pointed that out because I think it's important to understand like and we discuss this all the time. Every habit, and this is a habit, guys, like that voice in our head and listening to it and honoring it constantly is just a habit, but it serves us, right? Keeps us safe, keeps us moving forward in a safe and comfortable way, right? But challenging that and calling it out. Who told you that? Who says that? It's important if you want to change, right?
Yeah. Every behavior has a motivation. And when you start to understand the motivations of why you're telling yourself these things and how they're serving you, then you can begin to work on changing that. So try that this week. Try that on. Notice when you start talking to yourself. And it's almost always when there's an uncomfortable decision, right? When there's a path in the road or a path in your decisions, either, let's just say eat the cookie or don't eat the cookie. It's interesting that voice that comes out in that moment, right? Put on your shoe, your sneakers or don't. right? Like notice what happens in those tough moments. And when you notice it, again, you can acknowledge it and realize you're not that person, you're not that voice, at least, and you can choose to make a different decision.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.